Welcome into a not very expected Florida, I wouldn't say defeat, but it felt more of like an embarrassment as Florida takes one to the chin. I don't remember what the final score was here. I think it was 40-17, I think it was. And final score doesn't matter. Florida takes one bad. As you can see, I'm joined with Terry Norvell, the owner of College Sports Today. He does a show with two guys by the name of Shane Matthews and Steve Sprayer. Terry, what's going on, man?
Hey, buddy, glad to be here. And next time I talk to Shane, I believe Shane's been working the road games on the Gator Radio Network the second half of the season. I believe Shane is 0 for 3 now. He's struggled on the calls, and the Gators are really struggling. I think tonight is a watershed moment. I don't see any way now that Dan Mullen will be the football coach next year at the University of Florida. They have to make a move. We can get into it as deep as you want. Dylan, I think you follow some of the stuff I do with College Sports Today, and then Saturday kickoff on 1010XL. I've seen this before. The belligerent, angry, dig your heel in coach. Normally, that is the sign that they don't want to be there anymore for whatever reason. And occasionally programs overlook that and either give or keep a coach one more year. It ends up happening, meaning that they divorce the following year. And Dylan, you know me, you've been around me a long time. I've said when the coach needs to go for whatever reason, if you give the coach the extra year and you make the move the following year, it's not a 1-for-1, it's a 1-for-3. It sets you back about 3 years. I think Scott Strickland, I would imagine somewhere in the bowels of Williams-Brice Stadium. He's on the phone right now with President Fox at the University of Florida and some big-time boosters before he gets on that plane and heads back to Gainesville. I think they've got some serious discussions to have, and lawyers and agents need to start talking. I think the divorce needs to happen for the good of the Florida football program.
Terry, so let's start here. Let's go bird's eye view aerial shot, because I was expected to catch up with you last week. We couldn't because Florida, Georgia. I think you were caught with paparazzi. I don't know, the girls got to you or something. You couldn't catch up with us. But
I think it was more like 150,000 people around that area. It's a madhouse coming out.
Yeah.
I was at the game.
So I always just want to go back to this. Florida's 8-1 going to LSU last year. Since then, the whole program has done a complete 180. What changed from understanding Florida's defense was awful last year and you compensated with excellent offense? You lose talent, but I mean, it seems like everything has just completely fell off of Florida.
Yeah, a couple things. They stumbled into some generational players. I mean, Kadarius Toney, I don't think the staff developed him last year in the offseason of last year as much as Toney decided to develop himself. Kyle Trask, they stumble into him. And then Kyle Pitts, who would have thought he'd been that great. I still think it all goes back to margin of error with talent on the roster. Florida, as the season played out last year, even against a depleted LSU team last year, LSU's 54 players were a lot better than Florida's first 54. I know they only had 54 because of the COVID last year. It goes back to talent. When you are not as talented as the average teams you're playing, your margin for error is so small. I'll give you an example. The Florida lost to Kentucky this year. Kentucky doesn't do a whole lot on offense. Florida, because their roster is not a lot better than Kentucky's. Georgia's roster is a lot better than Kentucky's this year. Alabama's roster is a lot better than Kentucky this year. If either one of those teams played Kentucky the same game in Lexington several weeks ago, they would have won that game 24-20 because their talent would have won out. Florida, they're not discernibly better than the Kentuckys of the world. So if they have a night where they play at 70%, they're going to lose that game probably. An Alabama, 70% for Alabama and Georgia is still beating almost everybody on the team because their talent level is way up there. I think it just goes back to talent. It goes back to recruiting. And it's been an absolute nightmare for Dan Mullen recruiting.
Recruiting hasn't been good. The talent's not as good as we saw specifically last week against Georgia. Another thing that's changed is Dan Mullen's attitude. And this is something that hasn't been talked about a lot.
Sure.
Dan Mullen's, anytime you talk to him, last year, when everything is good, he runs his mouth, and that's fine. And I've said consistently on the show, whatever you are in life, just be consistent. If you're going to consistently talk, just be the person that always talks. And now that Dan Mullen's losing a lot, his attitude's changed. He doesn't want to say anything to the media. I mean, literally 1-2 word answers. And I think he's trying to find a way out the door.
Absolutely.
So if Dan Mullen leaves, question one is who replaces him at Florida? And two, Terry, I know people are going to go freak out when I say this, but I think Dan Mullen wants to take a shot at the NFL. I know Rick Neuheisel went on Sirius XM and mentioned that. But I want to bring this up. Cliff Kingsbury was not a winning coach in college football. Cliff Kingsbury had Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech and did not win because Cliff Kingsbury was excellent with X's and O's, and you see how he's chalking it up at the Arizona Cardinals right now. He only has one loss, one of the best teams in the NFL. I think Dan Mullen takes a move and will try to go to the NFL. I don't think Dan Mullen comes back next year, and I think that's the first time I didn't really come to that realization until this week. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, again, what I was saying, I've seen the attitude before with other coaches. You saw it in Florida, in Gainesville. Will Muschamp, he was exhibiting, didn't want to be there anymore, and had just his time was over. He was attitudinal. He had a bad attitude, and struck out at the media. Jim McElwain, Jimbo Fisher didn't lose to the degree, but Jimbo Fisher, his last 2 years at Florida State, he did not want to be there. He was, belligerent, dug his heels in. For whatever reason, is it because the college game has changed so much? Now, to Mullen's credit, the college game has really changed everything around the game the last 2 or 3 years. Maybe that has totally turned him off. I don't know. The portal and the constant recruiting and the job of a college coach really sucks now. I mean, the things they don't like doing have been amplified. Somewhere, though, Mullen, midseason a year ago, 3/4 of the season, you started seeing it. You're right. His attitude and his wackiness. He's had, if you start putting the incidents he's had, weird things, crazy things that he's had or he's done at Florida, he's had 2 on-field major confrontations with other head coaches, Derek Mason at Vanderbilt and Drinkwitz at Missouri. He's dressed up like Darth Vader at a press conference. I get it. It was Halloween night. Dan Mullen doesn't have that fun cocktail party personality. So that was way out of character. It was a fun thing. He's got young kids, and I get it. He said, hey, it's Halloween night. That's not his personality. Boy, he's had some strange stuff. Something isn't right. He does not want to be at Florida. His verbal and nonverbal communication, I think, I saw that a couple of weeks ago. And some people on Facebook got on me a little bit. And I said, hey, I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think it can be turned around either. You look at Mullen. Okay, he's wrapping up year 4. The biggest issue with Mullen, other than the fact his team quit on him tonight, I know they had a lot of players that were not playing. Some illness took over the team, a couple of injuries. That's fine. Maybe he was playing some second stringers. Okay, they may not be talented as first stringers, but you can still give effort. You can still give – they didn't give any effort. So you saw him quit. Going back, though, the reason I don't think it's just going to miraculously change, even if he replaces a couple of coaches, look at his first 3 years and his recruiting going out of those first. Year 1, they won 10 football games. He increased the win total by 6. The arrow was pointing up. Wins 10 games, arrow pointing up. Still didn't have a big-time recruiting season. When I say big-time, you got to finish in the top 6 or 7, right? If you want to be a big boy, you got to finish in the top 6 or 7. So 10 wins, the arrow pointing up, coming out of year 1, still not a great recruiting class. Year 2, they take it to 11 wins, right? They go to 11 wins. And he goes, the arrow's pointing way up again. They still don't recruit at a high level. Year 3, less games because of COVID. And I know they lost a few at the end and it got sideways. Year 3, they won the East. And Dylan, Florida last year had the most dynamic, sexy offense in the country. Everybody around the country stopped and watched the Florida offense. They were so dynamic. He had that working for him year 3, still couldn't recruit coming out of year 3. So why would you think anything's going to change dramatically with his worst season of 4 and the wheels like they're falling off? I just don't think changing a couple of coaches is going to do it. And when do you, if Dan Mullen kept the job, when does he change coaches? Most likely Sunday after the final game, November 27th. That would be November 28th on that Sunday. Signing day now is the third Wednesday in December. You got 18 days. 18 days if you change out some coaches. Good luck cobbling something together. A lot of things just say it is time Florida and Dan Mullen part ways.
When it comes to recruiting, and I know you talked about this with Matt Hayes on your show on 1010XL today, recruiting is either in you or it's not. And Dan Mullen has never been a recruiter.
Yeah.
So for the people that think, and let's just say for the sake of argument, that he somehow stays at Florida one more year. For the people that think he's just going to turn it on a notch, that's just not realistic.
Yeah.
Number one. 2, I know, and I'm going to go deep into this and this is something you've always talked about. Florida and facilities has been so far behind. If you look at what Florida is compared to Georgia, compared to Alabama, Georgia and Alabama spend $3 million each in recruiting. Florida spends about $1 million. Georgia and Alabama have their own football-only facilities. In fact, almost every Power 5 school has a football-only facility. Florida is one of the few that don't. How much of a factor do you think that factors into recruiting? I mean, is that reasonable to say that Dan Mullen isn't recruiting at as high of a level to Georgia, Alabama because of facilities?
It's a factor. I don't think it's a massive factor. It is a factor, and the football only facility is just about done. It looks like I've ridden by it recently, and I mean, gosh darn, I don't think they're at the punch out stage, but they're close. Unless the timeline changes, I'm hearing spring of 22, May-ish. So it's probably close enough that you can sell it now to guys that are coming in or you're trying to get to come in. Yes, it was a factor. Winning big, a dynamic coach, all that plays into it. And again, the facility is right around the corner. It's right around the corner. I don't think that is a huge factor. It's a factor, but I don't think that's a huge factor. As you said, you kind of are who you are. And still, the head coach in college, they wear every hat. It's so important that you get the right guy in place. And recruiting is free agency. Recruiting is the draft. Recruiting is everything in college athletics. It's also odd to me. You are who you are. I get it. Your personality may not just go into the living room and wow people. But it seems like Mullen just thinks he can out X's and O's. Remember, he cut his teeth with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, Lord knows, Urban Meyer showed him. He went out and got the Percy Harvins and the Tim Tebows and the Pounceys and the Lewis Murphys. I mean, Dan Mullen had his greatest success because Urban Meyer brought really good players with really good X's and O's are hard to beat. Real hard to beat.
Terry, you're the AD at Florida. Who's your number one target to come to Florida?
Right now, who's out there? It's just a pot shot. It's got to be somebody dynamic. The University of Florida needs dynamic. They don't need milquetoast. Dan Mullen is as milquetoast as you can get. I mean, you are who you are. Your personality is who you are. So you shouldn't try and change who you are. But if Dan Mullen was a color, he'd be clear. He's very, very milquetoast. Florida needs, think about it, the two dynamic coaches that have worked at Florida, Steve Spurrier and Urban Meyer, very dynamic, very, very dynamic guys. Steve Spurrier gets a bad rap. The knock on Spurrier was he didn't love recruiting. Spurrier was crazy like a fox. Remember, let's get back. Steve Spurrier in the 90s had the sexy offense. Everybody wanted to watch that offense. A lot of people wanted to watch hoping they'd get beat, but everybody wanted to watch the Spurrier offense. It was cutting edge. And very early into Spurrier's tenure at Florida, I don't know if he did it crazy like a fox, but word got out that Spurrier had an attitude, didn't love recruiting, And he also didn't want you to come. If you didn't want to come to Gainesville and be a Gator, he didn't want you. Now, he used that to his advantage because that got out there. So the 5-star big-time players that they wanted, when Steve Spurrier made the call or went into the living room, that player went, wow. It's understood that Coach Spurrier doesn't do a whole lot of recruiting. So, man, if he's on the phone with me, if he's in my living room, wow, he used that. I think he was crazy like a fox like that. Maybe he didn't have the most dynamic personality to go win the living room, but he said, hey, man, let me get this message out that, you know what, I only chase big-time players. If I call you, you're special. And he used it, and he used it well.
Yeah, I mean, there's Mel Tucker's out there. There was a comment that I was going to say it earlier. Joe Brady, that would be a really young guy. I don't know if that would first year head coach. The guy's never been a head coach anywhere. That would be a tough one. But I mean, and also too, you'd have to think about all the chaos that's around college football right now. You have the USC job open.
Sure.
You have the LSU job that's open. Possibly You're going to have multiple positions open. That's going to guarantee the head coaching position more than likely will be open. I mean, just so much controversy and chaos around college football. And also, too, Terry, I know Florida fan last night, they want to think about this, and I will switch to this. I mean, Georgia's using all this to their advantage right now. Florida's down. Florida State's down. Miami's down. All these recruits that are, a hotbed for Florida. So Georgia's getting a lot of them. And it looks like, Georgia is the only team that's consistent in college football. Alabama just barely beat LSU. Michigan State lost today. Wake Forest lost today. That's just another reason why. And you don't want to get caught behind, like you said, Terry. If you wait another year, that could mean you're 3 years behind, and you got to make a move now.
I'll tell you another thing you don't want to get caught behind. We're now this is kind of new, and I think it might have to do with the early signing period. Remember now, the early signing period's only been around 2 or 3 years, right? For the longest time, there was only one signing period. It was always the first Wednesday in February. So if you fired your coach after the final regular season game, you got a guy in a week or so. They still had the new guy and the new staff still had a fighting chance because they had 8 weeks before signing day, right? You could start carving out some relationships and trying to swing some guys. Well, as I mentioned, there are 18 days between November 28th, the Sunday after the regular season, and December 15th. 18 days. I think that's why you're starting to see coaches get whacked mid-season like we're seeing now. Because, and again, I think Florida, you need to announce that you have an opening, right? LSU, say what you want, legal or not, they've been sending out their feelers, and USC's been sending out their feelers and calling the agents and kind of, that happens. You can get in trouble a little bit through the NCAA for that, but that happens. You've got to kind of get your name out there and say, hey, our job is open, and, and vice versa. That coach can kind of do the old, hey, Mr. Agent, I know you did. Let LSU know that I wouldn't turn them down if they called. Hey, Florida, So I think it's even more critical that if I'm running Florida, if I was running the University of Florida, president, AD, I would be on the phone right now with my big boosters, my president, and you would see a scroll running tomorrow sometime during the 1 o'clock NFL games. University of Florida and Dan Mullen have decided to part ways. However, has Dan already been working something? But yeah, I would get it out there that I'm in the market for a coach.
Guys, I'm Dylan Denmark alongside Terry Norvell. He hosts a show on Facebook, College Sports Today, with Shane Matthews and Steve Spurrier. This is at the Voice of College Football's YouTube channel. Make sure we're subscribing to the SEC and the Gator channel and getting our numbers up from there. Terry, I appreciate the time, about 20 minutes. I know it's way past your bedtime. Terry, tell them how they can catch your show. And, college basketball is right around the corner. I know that's something right up your alley. It's crazy to say in November, in the middle of college football season. But what can they expect us here on your show Monday?
Yeah, obviously, I will reiterate. I pretty much said that I thought Florida and Dan Mullen should part ways before the South Carolina loss, before the loss. So obviously, I'm going to reiterate that. Obviously, our show is Monday and Friday live at 11 a.m. You can follow on Facebook. Just follow it. You'll get the announcements. Coach Spurrier, I think, will be in. He was in Columbia. I think he'll be in on Monday. He travels a lot and all. And then Friday we'll have Shane Matthews on. He comes on Fridays a lot now, and they're both working. But obviously, that'll be the dominant story. Also, the way the college playoff is playing out. Big day today for some programs, such as I think Oklahoma had a win, even though they didn't play, with a couple teams undefeated losing. A tough win, if I can say that, for Cincinnati. I think they've got next to no chance. I think they'll continue to tumble. Georgia, keeps winning. The question, there's some fun side stories with Georgia we've been talking about. Do they have enough offense? They've got plenty of defense, but when they come up against, if they catch an Oklahoma, if they catch I still think Ohio State can score points. They had Ohio State faced Nebraska. Today was Nebraska's circle the wagons, try to win one for the Gipper. They played their tail off for Scott Frost, but they come up short. An Ohio State and Oklahoma. I think Alabama, even against the great Georgia defense, I think those teams can get into the 24-28 range. Can Georgia, with Stetson Bennett, can they score more than about 21 points? So Georgia, I don't think it's an easy march for Georgia. A lot going on. Hard to believe it's week 10. We just wrapped up week 10, and the first Saturday in November is gone now. Unbelievable. The season goes so fast.
Yeah, we only got a month left, and it's crazy to say as it feels like we just started week 1, and we were talking about Anthony Richardson having crazy plays against Florida Atlantic. And then you look up, the Nor'easters came through, and we're already through the season. Terry, thanks for the time. Sorry,
real quick, I want to reiterate, to me, the damning thing tonight was not necessarily the loss. I didn't think Florida would lose, and I certainly didn't think they'd get routed. Not necessarily the loss, and not necessarily Richardson didn't play because of the hit in Georgia. Not necessarily a bunch of guys didn't play for flu symptoms and some injuries. The issue tonight was the effort. That team has quit on their coach. I mean, I don't care if you're a third stringer. You may not be as physically talented as the guy you're going up against, but you can tell effort. You can get beat and still get good effort. I think that was the telling part. And you saw Mullen all night. He looked like a proverbial dead man coaching.
Yeah, South Carolina was like 13th on offense in the SEC. I think they totaled let me pull it up. I had the numbers.
And remember this, South Carolina coming into tonight's game had won 4 games. Mm-hmm. They had beaten 3 group of 5 teams, and Vanderbilt was the only Power 5 team that they had beaten. Now South Carolina has beaten 2 Power 5 teams this year, Vanderbilt and Florida.
Yeah, South Carolina averaged 3.5 yards a carry, 117 total rushing yards. In the first half alone, South Carolina averaged 8 yards a carry, 147 yards total.
With a kid playing his first Power 5 starting game.
Your third string quarterback on with a first year head coach. South Carolina had a total average of 328 yards per game, and they had 316 in the first half alone.
You'll hear this a lot, Dylan, and I think you're a little too young to remember this. You'll hear this a lot. This will go down as Dan Mullen. This will be the game that's referenced to Dan Mullen, like the Mississippi State game is referenced to Ron Zook. When Zook finally got fired, he got fired on his way back to Gainesville. Florida lost at Mississippi State, a Mississippi State team that lost to a 1AA team the week before. And I think they might have even got shut out, and they just obliterated Florida. That was his, Waterloo moment. This will be Dan Mullen's Waterloo moment. You can't come back. Everything that's happened in Dan Mullen's tenure at Florida, you can't come back from this.
No, you can't. And, it's I say it's sad to say, but I mean, the guy had nice progress all the way up to last year, the end of the year, and then it seemed like it's all crumbled right in front of us. And
obviously the Kentucky loss hurt. The 2 losses that really hurt, think about it, were the 2 LSU games. Those were the ones that really hurt because last year finished 8-4. It got kind of ugly. If you add one more win to last year and one more win to this year, both of those LSU games, it's digestible. Maybe those were just crushing with LSU limping in like they did both years in a row. And don't forget, it's hard to beat LSU anytime. You don't want to give away wins over LSU, for God's sakes.
Yeah, I mean the thing about this year is it's been so inconsistent. I mean, the first 4 games, it's okay. Florida has a good run defense, and Florida's able to run the ball. And then Kentucky happens, and Kentucky, you have offensive linemen not played. I think 3 offensive linemen didn't practice that week. No ability to run the ball. No scoring in the second half. Defense played outstanding. LSU, no run defense whatsoever. LSU has 300 yards rushing. Georgia, you play well defensively, but then you have nothing offensively. And then tonight, it was nothing. There was nothing there. There was no fight. The Dan Mullen and the coaching staff should have just thrown in the towel and just took the plane back to Gainesville.
And don't they, whoever they are, don't they say in just about every sport that if you're consistently inconsistent in multiple aspects, a lot of times that comes back to coaching.
Yeah.
You might not have enough talent, but man, it shouldn't be a different issue every single week. And it was that way with Florida.
Yeah. Terry, thanks for the time. Any final thoughts before I finish up this post-game show with Terry Norvell with College Sports Today?
Yeah, it's tough. It'll be Samford next week for the Gators. That'll be a small sleepy crowd. They go on the road at Missouri, most likely a noon Eastern, 11 a.m. kickoff. It's always sleepy on that noon kickoff in Columbia, Missouri. That's no given. And I know Florida State struggled today. They had like 20 players out with the flu, including their starting quarterback. I thought Florida State was going to win today over NC State. I had no idea because it got announced like within an hour before kickoff. Mackenzie Milton played quarterback. Travis didn't play. 20-something guys had the flu and didn't play, so they were depleted. Long-winded way of saying Florida State's going to come into Gainesville and want to win that game. That's going to be kind of their bowl game. Mike Norvell's done a pretty nice job keeping that team together, keeping that locker room together, cleaning it out a little bit after the loss to Jacksonville State. Florida State's going to come in and think they're going to win that game. If Florida has totally quit, and it looks like they have, that could be an ugly, ugly ball game in Gainesville to wrap up the regular season.
Yeah, you got 3 more. Florida has not been a team that's had any success on the road. At Kentucky, at LSU, and tonight.
Yep.
And boy, Florida might finish 7-5 with a loss after Missouri. And I mean, I know Missouri didn't look good today, but I mean, then again, it's Georgia. And
nor did Florida. Nor did Florida. Imagine this. I'll leave you on this, and I hate to be Chicken Little, but we got to look at everything. If Dan Mullen isn't let go, and he's still behind the scenes hasn't been let go, and he's still coaching, and Florida loses to Florida State, remember, that would be a Florida State team going into Gainesville, beating Florida that lost to Jacksonville State 8 or 9 weeks earlier. Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch.
Yeah. I don't have any words, Terry. After today's game, I was left with not a lot of words after the Kentucky and LSU loss. I don't know what else to say if that does happen. Terry, thanks for the time, brother. Have a good weekend. And catch Terry Monday on College Sports Today. Have a good weekend, Terry.
Appreciate it, buddy. See you.
That was Terry Norvell with College Sports Today. Catch his Facebook show. It's on YouTube as well as. All right, we're about 30 minutes in. I'll keep up with all your guys' comments. I see all of them rolling in. I know we have a lot of Fire Dan Mullen, Fire Todd Grantham. I don't think that's going to be an issue. But let's start here. Let's make sure we're subscribing to the YouTube channel at the Voice of College Football, however you're watching, either at the Gator channel or the SEC channel. I'm Dylan Denmark. I do this after every single Gator game. And Florida quit tonight. I think it's pretty simple. I really didn't watch much of the second half because there wasn't much to be watched. Anthony Richardson was in the concussion protocol. I think it was tweeted up by Edgar Thompson that He was able to go in case of emergency, and which meant Emory Jones got the nod. Emory Jones had a taped up thumb. He had a cast walking into the stadium. And I don't think it really would have mattered because nobody really showed up to play other than Justin Shorter. The offensive line, there was a couple of guys out. DeLance was one of them. Defense didn't have any heart. And I think that's it. I think that's the staff has got to go. And as I told Terry like 5-10 minutes ago, if you're just joining us, there's too many inconsistencies with this team. The first 4 games, it was okay. Florida's a run team. Florida has a really good run defense, and the secondary is pitiful. Then it turned into Florida can't run the ball against Kentucky, has really good defense still. And then the LSU game, Emory Jones is out. Richardson comes in. Okay, so you find an offense. You still score 42, but then the defense gives up 300 yards rushing. And then against Georgia, defense is good. And then the offense kind of implodes late in the first half. That was the game, 21 points. Richardson being a freshman, having freshman mistakes. Then tonight, everybody quit. And also I'll add to this, Dan Mullen has given a lot of 1-word, 2-word answers to the media. I don't know if you guys saw, I'm sure most of you have. Monday, he always talks to the media at 1 o'clock. Usually an assistant coach will talk and players. He shut it down to players and the assistant coaches for the rest of the week this week. Mullen only spoke for I think 10, 15 minutes when he usually goes 20 to 30. A lot of things are head scratchers, a lot of inconsistencies, and I think a lot of things will change at the University of Florida around the football program. And that first Sunday after Florida plays FSU, win or lose, I don't think it really matters what Florida does the last 3 games of the year. And I think Dan Mullen's doing this for a reason. I think Dan Mullen wants a reason to be let go. And I don't think he'll be fired. I think he just find a way to get out the door and find a way to get to another program, either in college or in the NFL. I think he can't succeed in the NFL. I used the example with Cliff Kingsbury earlier, a guy that didn't win in college, a guy that didn't really care for recruiting. But if you give him the personnel, a guy that doesn't have to go out and get the players to come in, a guy that can draw up the X's and O's, and that's the only thing he has to do. I think he can succeed that way. I know a lot of people won't agree with me, but I think that's something that Dan Mullen can do if an NFL team wants to give him an offer. It was reported Rick Neuheisel went on Sirius XM this week and said, Florida, Dan Mullen's tired of this. I don't know what this is at Florida, but I don't know if it's recruiting. I don't know if it's tired of the fan base constantly being on top of them, wanting the expectation to be national championship or SEC or bust. But that's where the state of the program is, and that's what Florida fans want. And that's what you get when you lose to Alabama close, then you lose to Kentucky, and you lose to LSU, you lose to Georgia the way you did. So that's my 2 cents. As I'll now get to you guys' comments. As I apologize, I haven't gotten to in the first 30 minutes. So I like this one, George. If I can't get Joe Brady, I'd give Frost a chance. Maybe Orgeron as his DC. I like Orgeron on the staff. I don't like Orgeron as the head coach. Orgeron's a great recruiter. Obviously, knows the SEC well. Knows defense real well. Scott Frost, okay, possibly. I would go. This is who I would go with, and this would be my pecking order. I would get Mel Tucker. If I can get Mel Tucker, he would be my number 1. He's been on the staff with Nick Saban at Alabama and at LSU. He's been with Kirby Smart at Georgia, so obviously knows the SEC well. Went to Colorado. I think he spent a few years there, maybe 2 to be exact. Was good there, and then look what he's done at Michigan State in basically an hour at the program. I know they lost today, but that was a program that hasn't been good since they went to the playoff in 2015. I think they had 1 win last year, and they were 8-0 coming into tonight. Again, I know they lost to Purdue, but Mel Tucker would be a guy that I would go after. Joe Brady would be another guy that I would go after. There's just, I don't know, and I'm not going to be. I know this was some of the narrative coming into today about, you know, if Florida, some of the fans that didn't want to get rid of Dan Mullen was, well, who are you going to get? That's you can't go by that. There's so many guys in the world of college football that want the Florida Gator job as a head coach. If you look at every head coaching job, and this is how I look at it, if every head coaching job is open, and if you have a position, and if the program gets the right guy, they should win. If USC finds the right guy, they beat everybody in the Pac-12. If Oklahoma has the right guy, regardless of how good whatever Texas has, Oklahoma should run through the Pac-12. If Ohio State has the right guy, they should run through the Big Ten. And Florida's in that same category outside of Alabama and the SEC. So, and that's the thing. That's the question you have to ask. And I think Florida has to have that right guy, and Florida has to jump on it because LSU job is open. That's a sexy job. The USC job is open. You have to get a guy because, well, you have the early signing period in mid-December. So you have 3 games. Obviously, Florida's not going to the SEC championship. And then you have 3 weeks where you have to hit recruiting hard, and then you have signing day. And the vast majority of guys, I think it's like 80%, sign on that first signing period. So so whatever. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is Scott Strickland has to make he has to make a point of emphasis. Do you stick with Dan Mullen or do you not? And if you stick with him, do you keep your staff? Obviously, that answer has to be no. You have to get rid of Todd Grantham. You have to get rid of Hevesy. You have to get rid of the majority of the staff. That has to be known the Sunday after Florida plays Florida State. So that's what Florida's at right now. Luke Fickell's another guy. I don't think – and this is another thing, too, that Florida fans have to consider. You have to think about fit. Would Luke Fickell fit in the SEC, and would he fit at Florida? Now, he's been at Ohio State, and he's done well at Cincinnati, but I always go back to this. When Florida, the last head coaching vacancy, the last time the job was open, it was Scott Frost was the number 1 guy. Then it was Chip Kelly, and then it was Dan Mullen. Scott Frost, I think, would have done well had he came to Florida. He recruited well at UCF and shopped it up well. I think he could have done that a little bit better here at Florida. And I know people want to say that, you know, Nebraska. I think Nebraska's different. You can't. No, Scott Frost can't get anybody to Nebraska. With Chip Kelly, I think Chip Kelly would have worked, but I don't think he would have stayed long because I don't think Chip Kelly would want to be in the spotlight. Dan Mullen is constantly in the spotlight. Fans are on top of him 24/7. They're on top of him with recruiting, winning at a high level, 0 patience. I mean, if you go back to his first season, fans were on top of him then because Florida lost to Kentucky and Missouri in his first season. Chip Kelly can develop a program, but he needs time. And I wonder if Luke Fickell would have to do that. And I wonder if Luke Fickell would like that. I don't think Luke Fickell would. That's why I think Mel Tucker would be a good guy. I think Joe Brady would be a good guy because he knows the SEC and knows what he's walking into. I told the story a couple of weeks ago about Lane Kiffin. Like when Lane Kiffin, he had the job at the Oakland Raiders as an NFL head coach, and his dad was Monty Kiffin, a successful coordinator in the NFL. And then he takes the Tennessee head coaching job in 2009, and the AD at Tennessee at the time said, your life's about to change. And Lane Kiffin's like, what are you talking about? Like, I've been a head coach at so-and-so. I've been around. He goes, no. The most important people in the state of Tennessee are going to be Dolly Parton, whoever the governor is, and you. And he quickly saw the difference on how fans react in the SEC and how everything is consumed. And college football in the South is religion. So that has to play a factor. And I don't think Luke Fickell – I'm not saying he couldn't, but I don't know if he would want that if he comes to Florida. And I'm going through a lot of your comments. And Terry said this. I think Florida, they need a sexy guy. They need someone to look what has worked in the last 30 years. Spurrier and Meyer and Dan Mullen too a little bit. Spurrier was well ahead of his time. He was 20 years before ahead of his time, airing it out, didn't care what people thought. Mullen recruited at a high level, had a great staff. Spurrier knew he didn't have a good defense, knew he needed help with the defense, so he got Bob Stoops. Mullen was a great CEO. Mullen had Charlie Strong and Dan Mullen as his coordinators. And Mullen hasn't been able to do that. So who's the next guy? Who can do that? Okay, so this is something I don't agree with here, Nick. Mullen inherited McElwain's players. Yeah, he didn't inherit McElwain's players. Dan Mullen inherited McElwain's players and made them great. Look at all the players that were drafted that were awful under McElwain. You look at Freddie Swain. Freddie Swain would have never been drafted under McElwain, and he was drafted under Dan Mullen. Kadarius Toney would be a third day guy in the draft. Would have been drafted 4 through 7. He was a first-round pick. This is your number 4. You're number 4. These are your dudes. And this is the product you have on the field. This is all Dan Mullen. And this is all recruiting. And today the guys quit. I mean, this is the biggest thing to me, and this is just one example, and I could go many ways. Ventrell Miller got hurt early in the year, your middle linebacker. If your middle linebacker goes out and you poop your pants because you don't have nobody to back him up, that's an issue. Because now you've seen, well, Jeremiah Moon has to go from the edge rusher to the middle. You had to go Brent Cox, who should only be an edge rusher, has had to go dropping coverage. That's not him. And they've had to adjust everybody in the front 7 because Ventrell Miller is not solidifying the anchor in the middle. That's an issue. And that all goes back to recruiting. Something that Matt Hayes, if you guys didn't see, Terry Norvell was on with me earlier with College Sports Today. Think about all of the talent that has left the state of Florida within the last 5 years. I saw a stat at media days, and this is crazy to believe. If you count the amount of 5-stars that Alabama's had since 2016, I think it was 22. Alabama has had 22 5-stars go to Alabama since 2016 from the state of Florida. That's Jerry Jeudy, that's Patrick Surtain, that's Tyson Campbell, among the few. Florida State, and Miami, if you combine those 3 schools, can't get to the same number that Alabama has by itself. And that's an issue. That doesn't happen if Miami has its guy. That doesn't happen with Bobby Bowden. That doesn't happen with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer gets those Bosa brothers. Urban Meyer gets Jerry Jeudy. Urban Meyer gets Sean Wade, the defensive back. He gets Tyreek Johnson from Jacksonville. Carson Beck, who's now at Georgia, does not leave Jacksonville, and he doesn't go to Georgia. Those guys stay in state, and that's where it all begins. Jacksonville has been a hotbed. Jacksonville, the talent, and that's where I'm from, so I'll stay with Jacksonville. The city of Jacksonville, the talent has exploded. And obviously, you've had talent years past. You've had Lito Shepherd. You've had Gus Scott. You've had Tim Tebow, obviously. Ryan Stamper. But the talent has exploded. And then I think another stat that I saw, Florida and Dan Mullen's only had 5 guys of the top 50 in the state. That's an issue. And one of the main reasons, and not to get off topic, one of the main reasons why USC let go of Clay Helton was because all of the talent was leaving the state. Look around. Georgia starting quarterback, well, supposed to be JT Daniels from the state of California. DJU at Clemson from the state of California. There's another Ohio State, their starting quarterback, Stroud, is from the state of California. That's an issue. You can't have that. And when you're not relatable to the players, specifically in your state, you have to go, and the next man's got to come in. If you guys are joining us, as I'm trying to get to your guys' comments, I went long with Terry Norvell. Thank you guys for watching, as I'm going to catch up and see what Dan Mullen said of the podium. Won't be much. It was one of the worst, probably embarrassing losses in Florida program history, right near the Georgia Southern loss that happened in 2014 when Florida won 4 games. If you're just joining us, this is the Gators Final Report. I am your host, Dylan Denmark. We are live at the SEC and the Florida Gator channel. Bear with me as I got the flu along with a lot of, seems like a lot of people in the South. I've been feeling a lot better this week, but Florida had an embarrassing loss. The players quit on him today. South Carolina, who could not run the ball all year, ran the ball just like LSU did. South Carolina played great defense, and Florida could not run the ball. Damian Pierce had 1 carry, your best ball carrier. Anthony Richardson didn't play. He was going to be used in case of emergency. Emory Jones had a thumb injury, had a thumb tape on his thumb. But the Florida season, the guys quit on him, and I don't know. The last 3 games really don't even matter. The only good thing that came out tonight, and this is just personally for me, Marcus Burke played, and I've known Marcus Burke since he was 6 years old. The dude caught a deep pass, almost had a touchdown, caught a couple passes, and a couple of freshmen got to play today. So that's the one positive thing that happened today, if you had to go with one. So here's a comment. Let's see if I could. Where'd it go? It was about Hugh Freeze. He said Hugh Freeze would be a good fit. I don't think Scott Strickland would hire Hugh Freeze. And let me go behind and let me explain. Agree with this or not, but I think Scott Strickland wants guys that aren't going to get in trouble. If you look at with him, he extended both Dan Mullen and Mike White, football and basketball, and outside these two in together. Scott Strickland extended Mike White because Mike White was not in trouble with the FBI. He consistently goes deep in the tournament, deep into the Sweet 16. Agree with that or not? That's what he's able to do, and Scott Strickland's okay with that. Now I understand. I know this is probably not the show to do this on, but understand that what women's basketball team, they had a lot of issues letting go of their coach, verbally assaulting the players and throwing basketball at players. You can dig into that story if you want to, and that the coach has been let go. But I don't think Scott Strickland wants the bag. I don't think he wants coaches that come with baggage. That's why I don't think he would want to hire a guy like Hugh Freeze. As if you guys are just now joining us, this is the Gators Final Report. I have the voice of college football on the SEC and the Gator channel. I am your host, Dylan Denmark, as I appreciate you guys for hopping on and dropping all your comments as I'm trying to catch up with you guys in the comment section, as that's what I wanted to do. I got carried away. Let me see what Dan Mullen said in his presser, as if it were much. Mullen asked about not singing the alma mater after either of the last 2 games. So there you go. He didn't sing the alma mater again tonight, as he did last week. We're on the road. That's on me, to be honest. I didn't know that we had the band here this week. We'll sing with the band next week in the swamp. Wow, what a joke. What a joke. Dan Mullen has sung with the alma mater every single game up to last week. Dan Mullen has been Dan Mullen is his stock. He just gets worse and worse every time he's in front of a podium, and it's not hard. It's not hard. Let's see what else Dan Mullen said at the podium today. Mullen asked if this game could accelerate staff changes. He says he's not going to get into that. Quote, we need to evaluate where we're at. Says they're excited to get back home next week for the first time in a while. Mullen says team has a great attitude this week and they worked. We just got to create some positive momentum for the guys on the team. We as coaches got to improve. Yeah, that seems like a bunch of BS to me. That's South Carolina. So I said this at the beginning of the show when Terry hopped on. South Carolina coming into tonight, they had averaged 117 yards on the ground per game with an average of 3.5 yards per rush. South Carolina in the first half alone had 147 yards on the ground with 8 yards per carry. South Carolina total yards for a game had 328 yards in the for total each game. In the first half tonight, South Carolina had 316. That's pitiful. The guys quit on them. And South Carolina outgained Florida 459 to 340. And Florida has been so inconsistently consistent everywhere. And that goes on coaching, like Terry said. The first 4 games of the season, we thought we knew who Florida was. We thought we knew who Florida was with. Okay, offensively, we thought, okay, we're going to be able to run the ball just under 400 yards per game. And that's what we saw against Florida Atlantic, USF, Alabama, and Tennessee. And then after the Tennessee game, it flipped. 3 linemen got hurt in practice. Florida had nothing offensively against Kentucky. The game plan was pitiful. It was probably Dan Mullen's worst game plan take out tonight. Defense played great. And then you come back the next week, Florida beats Vandy. Okay, whatever. Bad team. Then Florida goes on the road to LSU. Emory Jones, Anthony Richardson swap back and forth. Then you go with AR. You score 42 points, good. But then the defense that's led you all the way up to that point, specifically the run defense, LSU has over 300 yards rushing. Okay, so there's that. Then you have a bye. And then the Georgia game, Richardson has fresh mistakes. You lose the game in the span of 2 minutes after 3 turnovers. Offense didn't do much. Georgia has a great defense, okay. But the defense was good. Defense was really, really good that game, my opinion. Then, I'll say in the first half. Then tonight, nothing worked. South Carolina runs the ball at will against a first-year head coach on a third-string quarterback. Dan Mullen's in year 4. Dan Mullen is, okay, we're in November. He's 11 months removed from being this close from beating Alabama in the SEC championship and going to the playoff. If Florida beats Alabama, they go to the playoff. I understand you lose talent, but Florida's a program. Florida's not a team. Teams rebuild. Programs just reload. Alabama just reloads. It don't matter who they lose. You lose Tua, you lose Judy, you lose Devontae Smith. It don't matter. We got Ohio State transfer coming in, Williams. We got Mechie. We have all these running backs that have been sitting the bench 3-4 years, and they're ready to roll. And that hasn't been Florida. Florida's lost Pitts. Florida lost Tony. And no receiver has emerged. No receiver has came to life. Copeland was supposed to be that guy. Copeland, like every game this year, has had like a catch in the first half. And that's another thing. Florida, every game this season, has had a pitiful first half. Pitiful. You led Kentucky 13-10. You trailed. You came out flat against Alabama. You trailed 21-0. Had that not happened, you would probably have beaten Alabama. Then you were down 21-9 at half. Georgia was 3-0 until the debacle. But offensively, you're Dan Mullen, you're an offensive guy. You don't show anything offensively. You don't have a game plan. Coming off a bye. And then tonight. Yeah, maybe that's true. Dan Mullen's not a college head coach. It's just not in him. And I think he's talking about recruiting. You have to be able to recruit. I know. I remember a lot of people last year when Dan Mullen beat Kirby, and people were always saying, but Mullen's a better talent evaluator and developer, and Kirby's just a good recruiter. That's part of coaching. You have to be able to recruit in order to coach players, and you can't. It's like Kirby Smart said last week. You can't out coach talent. I'll take all the 5 stars. You can take your 3 and 4s, and I'll be a mediocre coach, and my guys can still win games. I'll give you an example. My school here, Baldwin Indians. I coach a middle school football team. The coaches we have on the staff, and we have a ton of talent. We have Gus Scott as one of the coaches. We have his brother, who played at West Virginia with Rich Rodriguez from 06 to 2010 when he played with Pat White and Noel Devine. Those good teams when West Virginia almost went to the national title in 07. And we lost this week because the guys didn't execute. Our guys just didn't execute. We had a couple of bad snaps, had penalties, and the other team was equally as good. And I can guarantee you that Gus Scott knows more than the team we were playing this week. And it all comes down to talent. The other team that we played had equal talent as us, and those guys made the plays, and we didn't. We had better coaching. And I know that's a simple form, but that goes to like what Florida's going through now. You can draw whatever play you want, but when Georgia and LSU and Alabama, when they can go 8 deep at the defensive line, when they can just bring in dude after dude after dude that can go first, second round pick, and that's really the one position that where you really want depth that Florida doesn't have. That's everything, and you're seeing that. Florida had a couple of linemen not play tonight. You saw that tonight. Defensively, Ventura Miller, the middle linebacker, isn't playing. Everybody's out of sorts. Moon is playing from end to middle, and Cox is playing on the edge rush and dropping. And it's just that shouldn't be an issue for your number 4 for Dan Mullen when you're in the state of Florida with so many recruits around the city of Gainesville. You're 90 minutes from Jacksonville. You're 90 minutes from Orlando. You're not far from Tampa. And also another thing, Florida State and Miami probably can't be any worse right now. And you can use that as a recruiting advantage. And Dan Mullen has like 5 guys in the top 50 in the state, I think it is. That's embarrassing. No, I don't see any way Caleb Dabo leaves Clemson. Not for Florida. I think Dabo would only leave Clemson for if he wants a challenge, he would go to USC, but I think that's a stretch. If he wanted to Alabama, but I don't see that either. I mean, I agree. Dabo could be a good coach, but I don't see that happening. Sorry, I know Tyson Campbell did go to Georgia. So Tyson Campbell played alongside Patrick Surtain at American Heritage. And this was 2017. Tyson Campbell went to Georgia. Surtain went to Alabama. Sorry for the confusion if I said that. The point I was trying to make was recruiting. all those guys from South Florida, they're all leaving the state of Florida and going elsewhere. And if Urban Meyer were in Florida, that wouldn't be happening. Or if Florida had, I won't say a great coach, but a coach that knew what he was doing and could recruit, those guys don't leave the state. And that's the point I was trying to make. Sorry if there was any confusion on that. Guys, if you're just joining us as we're getting a lot of numbers, for good reason, as we have another therapy session for after another Florida embarrassing loss. This is the Gators' final report at the voice of college football. Thank you guys for joining me tonight as we are about to approach midnight. We do this after every single Gator game. Make sure we're subscribing to the Gator channel and the SEC channel. As Florida guys, the team quit today. Florida again a double-digit favorite this year or this week, as they were against LSU and a big favorite against Kentucky. Lose that Florida open, I think it was like an 18-point favorite, and then the line went up all the way to 20, and Florida trailed 30-10. And then there was nothing from there. But South Carolina, on a first-year head coach, on a third-string quarterback, does whatever it wanted to do, gets a scoop and score, gets an interception in the second half, runs the ball at will, has like 150 yards in the first half, and it's for the last 3 games, I don't think it really matters what Florida does. I think Dan Mullen's attitude has changed. I think Dan Mullen will leave Florida. Where he's going to go, I think that'll be interesting. Staff definitely. I think the staff was already gone after this year, but I think Dan Mullen wants to leave. When in any breakup, you choose two ways. You either you're quiet and you ghost the other person, or you pick and choose your fights. And Dan Mullen's picking and choosing his fights. Ever since that Kentucky game, Dan Mullen's been really quiet with the media. The media's asking questions. He keeps it 1 or 2 words. I mean, remember, Dan Mullen was the guy that after he lost to Missouri in year number 1, he was the guy that was all over the microphone. And he was saying, well, I want competitors. I want guys to get after you. And he used the phrase, if we're going to thumb wrestle, I'm going to kick your ass. That's not the same energy that Dan Mullen has right now. I mean, I don't know if Dan Mullen came out this week. Rick Neuheisel said he's tired of this, talking about Dan Mullen. I don't know what this is. I would assume this is recruiting. This is the fans having high expectations, wanting to win the SEC, wanting to compete with Georgia, winning national titles. But, I mean, Dan Mullen's been at Florida. Dan Mullen knew what he was walking into. He'd been in Florida, from 05 to 09, so 5 years before he left to go to Mississippi State, where he was there for a decade. Oh, how about this one? Kerwin Bell coaching. I don't know if Florida would pull the trigger on that. Maybe I could see you bring him as a coordinator, not as a head coach. Yeah, this is a good point by our man Jones. The saddest thing about that is Mullen isn't going to go in anytime soon. If he does, we may have an interim coach for a year. I wouldn't be for a year. again, I think Dan Mullen's not he's not gonna have any staff changes in the last 3 weeks, last 3 games of the season, and he's not gonna leave the last 3 games. I think that's going to be determined the Sunday after the FSU game. What Dan Mullen will do, and specifically what Scott Strickland wants to do with Florida. Would Dion be interested? I'm sure he'd be interested, but golly, I can't imagine what the boosters of Florida would think. I don't think they would want. I don't think they would want them. I don't think they would. I don't think they want Deion Sanders, and I don't think Deion Sanders could deal with everything at the University of Florida as a head coach. I understand he's had a little bit of success at Jackson State. I mean, I can't. He had success in the spring. Let me look up what he's had so far at Jackson State so far. This is Deion Sanders. Jackson State's 8-1. Again, that's the HBCU. Not too bad, but again, I would go Mel Tucker. I would go Joe Brady. I don't think Bob Stoops wants to come out of retirement. One guy that would be great would be Chris Peterson, former Boise State Washington coach. I would drop the bag on him. But the thing you have to ask yourself is, does Chris Peterson want to come to the SEC? Does he want to be does he want to be a guy that is, pretty much a god in the South? And that's something that you're not used to when you're at Washington and at Boise. And that's something Mel Tucker is. I said this earlier. If you didn't catch it, Tom, Luke Fickell would be his choice. Again, I don't think Luke Fickell would fit the SEC in Florida. I think he's a good coach, but I think Luke Fickell is waiting for the Notre Dame or the Ohio State job to open up, and I think those two jobs will open soon. I think Ryan Day is going to leave eventually and get an NFL job. I think that's going to happen soon, and I think Brian Kelly is going to leave Notre Dame soon. I think Brian Kelly. He's been there. This is his 12th season, I think. I think that just Notre Dame and Brian Kelly have ran its course, and that has nothing to do with, because Brian Kelly's done well at Notre Dame. But I think Brian Kelly will leave eventually for Notre Dame, whether it be college or pro. And I think Luke Fickell wants to win on one of those two jobs because that's where his pipeline is. He was a head coach at Ohio State for a year. Was an assistant for Urban Meyer for a long time at Ohio State, in Cincinnati, in the Northeast area. I think he's waiting for a job at Ohio State. Yeah, absolutely not John Gruden. Absolutely no to John Gruden coming to Florida. That would be hilarious. Anthony drops a comment. Just like every game the past few weeks, the defense looked lost and confused. D-line getting manhandled every time they got blocked, and it's like they were the offensive line just blocking. Yeah, and that's coaching. Football's three things: alignment, assignment, execution. If you guys don't line up and your guys don't know the assignment, that all goes back to coaching. And football is not hard. When you get to that level, it shouldn't be, only thing these guys do when they're not in class is football. It's if you're a coach, you can be the greatest coach in the world, but if you can't tell your scheme and tell how you want your scheme to be played to your players, the scheme doesn't mean anything. And that goes for offense and defense. I don't know if Todd Grantham runs if what he tells the guys in the meeting rooms, but I mean, yeah, that all goes back to coaching. Tom said Mullins a dead man walking. Strickland was a fool to give him an extension. Buyout is $12 million for Dan Mullen. And timing is everything. Joe Flacco at one point in time was the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. It's because it was right after he won the Super Bowl. Mullen got this contract extension right after he almost beat Alabama. And he went 8-2 and almost made the playoff. And his trajectory was going up. It was 3 losses in year 1, 2018. 2019, you had 2 losses. 2020, you had 2 losses, but you were right there for the playoff, and then this year happens. This is something up for debate. The LSU job is objectively better than the Florida job. That's an issue. We won't get our first choice. I don't know with that. I don't agree with that. From again, this is what I said earlier, and comment, Daniel, if you're still here. This is how I explained it. If any program gets their guy, and that's USC, that's Ohio State, Alabama, whoever. If they have their guy, they should dominate. If USC gets their guy, like they did with Pete Carroll, you should run through the Pac-12. If Oklahoma gets their guy, which they have had under Lincoln Riley and Stoops, you should run through the Big 12 like they did. And that's regardless if Mac Brown's at Texas or whatever. Urban Meyer at Ohio State. Even if Michigan has a great coach, Ohio State should still beat Michigan every year. Other than Alabama and the SEC, Florida should dominate everybody else within their schedule. Because, number one, you're in the state of Florida. It's the hotbed. And if you look at all of the guys that are in the state of Florida that are leaving, Carson Beck is a top quarterback that's playing at Georgia. All of the guys, they got from within Jacksonville. With Trinity Christian, that's 90 minutes. You've had, within the last couple of years, you've had Tolliver, one of the top quarterbacks. He went to LSU. Sean Wade was Gatorade Player of the Year, top quarterback, went to Ohio State. Tyreek Johnson, top quarterback. He went to Ohio State. A top D lineman, Kendrick Norton, he went to Miami. I'm trying to think. Isaiah Ford was a top receiver, went to Virginia Tech. Jeff Sims was a top quarterback, went to Georgia Tech. Carson Beck was a top quarterback, went to Georgia Tech. I'm trying to think of a few others that are escaping my mind. Look at everything in South Florida. The Bosa brothers both went to Ohio State. Judy goes to Ohio State. Judy goes to Alabama. Tyson Campbell and Patrick Surtain go to Georgia and Alabama. If Florida has their guy, those guys do not leave the state of Florida. On top of that, Miami and Florida State are so down right now that you don't even have to worry about them. I mean, think about that. Terry was talking about Spurrier. Even though he wasn't a great recruiter, he would just walk in the room and say, okay, if you want to go play for them, that's cool, pretty much. And that was when Miami was coming off their run in the late 80s, early 90s, before they got it rolling again in 2000. And you had a Bobby Bowden. And Florida doesn't have to worry about that right now. Norvell is rebuilding. I mean, Florida State was, Mount Rushmore with Bobby Bowden, and they're starting from ground zero with Norvell. Manny Diaz will not be at Miami much longer, as they barely beat Georgia Tech today, I think. It all goes back to recruiting. And to go back to the question, LSU is a hotbed for in Louisiana, but I think if Florida has the guy and Florida does what they're supposed to do, Florida should beat LSU every year. The argument I was trying to make is if Florida finds their guy, I was making the argument for that LSU's a better job. I don't think LSU's a better job than Florida. I think Florida's a better job than LSU. If Florida finds their guy and LSU finds their guy, I think Florida should beat LSU more times than not. That was the argument I was trying to make. Sorry if there was any confusion. Yeah, and it's ironic as this comment dropped. I was Miami, as bad as they're doing right now. I think Miami is doing pretty well on the recruiting trail. Let me pull up the recruiting standings real quick from 24/7 2021 class, because it's crazy to think, but signing day is only 6 weeks away. But if you're just joining us, this is at the Voice of College Football's YouTube channel with the SEC and the Florida Gator channel. I am your host, Dylan Denmark. You can catch me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. As it stands right now, so everything that I just said, Miami's in shambles, and they're probably not going to keep Manny Diaz for much longer. Miami is ahead of Florida right now. So the order goes Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, Clemson. It's your top 5. Then it's Oregon, USC, A&M 8, Notre Dame 9, Oklahoma 10, Miami 11, Florida 12, and then you have Michigan, North Carolina. Florida has 23 recruits. This is how it's broken down. Florida has 1 5-star, 12 4-stars, and 10 3-stars. So again, 1 5-star, 12 4-stars, and 10 3-stars. Georgia has 4 5-stars and 11 4-stars. I mean, it's crazy. LSU, as bad as their program is right now, they're 3rd. They have the same recruits as Florida. They have 2 5-stars and 16 4-stars. That's crazy. I saw the comment earlier about it was Tony Dungy or Mike Leach. I wouldn't want Mike Leach. I would not want Mike Leach at Florida, and I don't think Tony Dungy would come to Florida. James Franklin. I would take him, but I don't think James Franklin would have come to Florida. Florida's a better job than Penn State, but I don't know. His name's been circled a lot around the USC job. If he does take that job, who knows? But I mean, Florida has to make a decision. USC's open, LSU's open. Not in the same category, but TCU is open. And if it doesn't look like things will change, if things will change, Florida will have an opening soon, within the next couple of weeks. But tonight, if you're just joining us, Florida's team quit tonight against South Carolina. South Carolina, and the first half ran for 147 yards when South Carolina only averaged 117 yards on the ground. South Carolina averaged 8.2 yards per carry in the first half, only averaged 3.5 per game. Florida didn't even attempt to run the ball at first. In the first 2 drives, they aired it out, which was a really head scratcher. Emory Jones underthrew so many balls that were deep that could have been touchdowns, specifically to one of Marcus Burke. I think that was one on their second drive. Dameon Pierce only got 1 carry in the first half. Dameon Pierce has been Florida's best ball carrier that consistently hasn't gotten any carries throughout the season, although I understand Florida has a deep running back group, but Pierce is by far the best one. Defensively was a joke. Grantham continues that he shouldn't be at Florida, and he shouldn't have been hired in the offseason and came back for his final season at Florida. It was pretty much a rerun of what happened against LSU. And from here, it's the last 3 games. I think the entire coaching staff has to be wiped away because, like Terry said, if you guys didn't see from the first 20 minutes, if Florida waits when everyone knows now that Dan Mullen is not going to be the guy, this just kills you in recruiting down the road. You saw, and you've seen this with, Willie Taggart. Everyone pretty much knew he wasn't the guy after a year, and they continued to keep him, and it just made the program worse and worse and worse. Jimbo Fisher, if you saw, the program in 2017, the program got worse throughout the year, and then he left. That was good for Florida State. And then you saw with Willie Taggart, and now with Norvell. And Norvell has to start literally from ground zero and build that program up because of the previous coaching staffs. And Florida doesn't want to go to that same threshold. Okay, so I see a couple of your guys' comments rolling in. I see Mullen is Florida's coach. He just needs recruiters show because has his hands tied. Grantham can't recruit or coach D. So this is the thing. Dan Mullen's not a great recruiter. He wasn't at Mississippi State, and he hasn't been at Florida. That's not something that just changes overnight. That's not going to change. And Florida's best recruiter on the staff, ironically, is Todd Grantham. Now, he's going to be gone after this year. And I think you're going to get rid of a lot more than the staff. I think you're going to get rid of Hevesy. You're going to get rid of Todd Grantham. You're going to get rid of the entire defense. And I think Dan Mullen wants to be let go. I think he wants to go. And you can just tell by his attitude. I don't think Florida's going to fire him. So I don't know what the buyout will be. It's $12 million now. So I don't know if Strickland and Mullen will come to an agreement or what that number will be. That's for a different show. But you can just tell it in Mullen's attitude that he wants to leave, and he's picking his fights. And when that happens, you see where Mullen wants to go, whether it be to another college program. He wants to be let out. And maybe it's the NFL. That's been reported. That was reported last year too. And I think Mullen could potentially work out in the NFL. And I know people will probably laugh at me at this, but look at what Cliff Kingsbury's done in the NFL. A dude that didn't work in college. Cliff Kingsbury could not recruit in college. He even had Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech. But Kingsbury can coach offense. He got he got Kyler Murray, and he has one of the best teams in the NFL. Yeah, I keep seeing the name Lane Kiffin pop up. I don't think Scott Strickland would hire Lane Kiffin. I don't think that would happen. But it's going to be a great offseason. And the thing is too, you know, I mean Florida season's done with. The guys have quit. But you have to make a decision if you're just joining us. You have 3 games left in the season, and signing day in December is in mid-December. So you have to make a decision because most recruits make a decision on that first signing period. You have 2 of them. You have one mid-December, and then you have one in the first Wednesday of February. So you have till pretty much Thanksgiving weekend until I think it's December 17th, right in that window, about 3 weeks for Florida to say, okay, we're keeping our head coach, we're getting rid of the staff, we're getting rid of XYZ, we're keeping XYZ, whatever. But I think Dan Mullen needs to go. So if Dan Mullen does leave, who's going to be that guy? And you have to get that guy ASAP. And Scott Strickland, the AD at every program, needs to have that drawer with your emergency guys that are on speed dial. That meaning if your guy gets let go or if something happens to your guy and he leaves, these guys, this is your list. My list would be Mel Tucker. My list would be it would be Joe Brady. And I'm thinking realistically. I mean, I don't see any way Jimbo leaves. I don't see any way Dabo leaves to come to Florida. Obviously, Nick Saban, he's too old. Those would be my top 3. I wouldn't get Lane Kiffin. I don't think he would fit. I wouldn't get Mike Leach. Luke Fickell would be a good coach, but I don't think Luke Fickell would want to come to the SEC. His footprint's more of the Big Ten in the Northeast. Brian Johnson, I just thought about him. Brian Johnson, a guy literally just left Florida, but then again, you're going to take a chance on a guy that's never been a head coach. That would be the end. That's one of the issues you have to decide. Alabama Outlaw says the only way Florida will ever be truly elite with his mindset philosophy is if he gets some amazing recruiters and they'll do all the dirty work recruiting wise and then get them to UF. Mullen, not it. And I talked about this last week after the Georgia game because recruiting was the big was under the spotlight, as you could say. All of the talent that Georgia had that Florida didn't. Florida's so far behind in facilities right now and Georgia's so far ahead. Number one, Kirby's a better recruiter than Dan Mullen. Everyone knows that. That's understandable. The facilities are so much better at Georgia than Florida. Florida will get its football-only facility, something that it has black that Georgia has. But, I mean, you have to be innovative and you have to – I went back to this last week, and I'm stumbling over my words. If you go back to when Florida won 4 national titles in the span of 3 years, 2 in football, 2 in basketball in the span from 06 to 09, what did Florida do with all the money? What did Florida do with all the publicity that came with that? Because right after Florida got Muschamp, they went. They didn't do that well. 11 was first year. They didn't do good. 12, you did pretty good. because you had Sharif Floyd, Dominique Easley, Matt Elam, Jeff Driscoll, and you were still riding from that Urban Meyer wave a little bit, and then it went down to the tank. You get McElwain, you went to SEC East titles, but the team was really never competitive against Alabama before he then got let go. But recruiting, the thing 10 years ago was the indoor practice facility. That was what everybody had. And Florida didn't get there until 2014. And then you look around, well, Georgia and Alabama, they're getting all these brand new facilities. And their brand new facilities that they got from 2-3 years ago are getting things done to them that are already old technology and getting new technology in. And that's Epsom salt baths. That's for recovery. That's for rehab. That's for you to do all these things for your body to recover that Florida doesn't have. Something I saw a stat that said of the 65 Power 5 programs, I think it said like 60 of them have a football-only facility, and Florida's not one of them. That's insane. Now, you could go off the premise and you could say, well, Urban Meyer didn't need that. Steve Spurrier didn't need that. You live in a different day and age today. Your coach today has to be on social media. Nick Saban's an exception. He's different. He's in his own category. You have to be using social media. You have to be interacting with these guys. You have to have all these facilities to compete and keep up with the Joneses. You have to spend money on recruiting. Georgia and Alabama spend $3 million each on recruiting. Florida spends $1 million. And you just have to have things that you can give to these recruits. And another thing, if you want to go back to old school, in the 90s, Florida only had to worry about Florida State, Miami, and State. And that was it. And those guys were at the top in the 90s, if you remember. Now, I mean, your average 2-3 star in the state of Florida would go walk on at Florida State, and Miami, and you could develop those guys in your program, and then they would be really good. Like I think it was Santana Moss at Miami. I can't think of any players that are walk-ons at Florida. I think, forgive me, was Chris Doring a walk-on at Florida? But guys like him that weren't able to start from day one, but you could develop them, and then for them to be really good. Now those walk-ons are playing day one at UCF. They're playing day one at FIU, playing day one at FAU, USF, and all these guys that could have been walk-ons at Florida State, and Miami. Well, they're going playing from day one at all these new programs that were developing in the 90s that weren't ever a recruit. So that is what has changed since the 90s. Harold drops a good comment. Facilities on the head coach and AD. Kirby took the reins from CMR, and the AD supported him. That's how we got ahead. I guess he's a Georgia fan, I guess, with the logo. Those coaches and AD before Mullen didn't upgrade, and that got behind. Yeah, it did. Jeremy Foley didn't stay innovative and stay ahead of the game. He didn't keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. It didn't happen under Muschamp, and that's one of the main reasons why Jimbo Fisher left FSU. He continued to beat the table, and he continued to say, we need facilities, we need this, we need that. And then after so long, he just said, F it, I'm leaving. And he went to a school that helped him get those facilities in A&M. Yeah, I understand that Florida is opening a football-only facility now. It's supposed to open, I think, in March or April. I think at the latest by the end of the next summer. It'll be at the old baseball stadium. So Florida got a new baseball stadium which is now by the softball field, and basically the indoor practice facility, the outdoor practice fields, and then the old baseball field will be where all of the coaches' offices are. That is um, where the football only facility will be, and we'll see if that changes anything in recruiting. I mean, I'm sure all the coaches recruit that to all the high school recruits, but I mean it's behind. It's something that should have been done a long time ago. Yeah, Nick Saban's not leaving. You can forget about that. What's a dream scenario that can allow Mullen to succeed as Florida head coach? I am late checking in here. Sorry if you're late. So Brett, Dan Mullen, his dream scenario: one, needs to get a better DC. Two, needs to get coaches that can recruit because he's not. Dan Mullen is not a guy that's going to recruit to the level of a Nick Saban or Kirby Smart, and it's not something that's going to change for Dan Mullen. Dan Dan Mullen is who he is, and people don't change over time unless you're losing like you are now, which things will, or you're about to die, and obviously we don't have to worry about death here. Dan Mullen, I mean, I think I pretty much hit on it. Dan Mullen's not going to change his recruiting. You have to get recruits to compete with Georgia, compete with Alabama. You need to get you need to get a different staff that can coach your defense because I mean you saw tonight the guys quit on him, uh, and you might even say that you lost the locker room because maybe your message doesn't get across the same because the way that it was portrayed today, the way the effort looked like it looked like the players didn't even care. Yeah, Joel Cole says facilities are better at Kentucky. Yeah, Shane Matthews has said this a lot, and his son who played at Florida for a couple of years, the last I think 2 or 3 years, he doesn't play on the team anymore, and he took a tour around a lot of SEC schools, and he said the vast majority of the SEC schools have better facilities than Florida. So you can take his word at that. The Chiefs OC Brett Bieniemy. I don't know if he would want to come to the college game, and I don't think that would be a good fit for Florida. Florida needs, whether it be an offensive or defensive guy, they need a guy. They need a sexy pick. They need someone that's going to clamor. That's going to. Dan Mullen is so vanilla, and I know he's tried to, wear the Halloween costume. He tries to be cool and wear the Jordans and do all this, but that doesn't feel like Dan Mullen. Florida needs someone that's good. That's good with the media, that can energize the fan base because it's different at Florida, and you're going to be on top of. Fans expect excellence, right? Or whatever your opinion is. Fans expect excellence. Expect excellence in recruiting. They expect you to compete with Georgia in the East and compete for SEC titles every single year. And if you're just joining us, I think Mel Tucker is the best option for that. Him, Joe Brady, Matt Campbell, Iowa State, Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. I don't know if I would go there, but that would be an option. Anthony drops the comment. Yeah, Dan's checked out, and I think you're right. I think he wants to be let go because he can't pull the trigger on his staff, and he's got too much commitment issues with coaches, seniors, and players. Yeah, that's on Dan Mullen. You can't. You walk a fine line with loyalty, and then drawing that line with loyalty and saying, okay, I got to do what's best for me, and whatever I got to do to win. A lot of the staff has came from Mississippi State or been with him when he was his first time at Florida, like Billy Gonzalez and a few others. You have to let go of some of those guys. You have to let go because, I mean, the offensive line has been consistently inconsistent this year. I mean, Florida went from running the ball just under 400 yards a game to then completely abandoning the run. I think in the first half, Florida ran the ball 10 times for 18 yards. We're talking about a Florida team that ran the ball, did whatever it wanted to in the second half against Alabama. That scored 42 points against LSU. Didn't do anything against Georgia. Okay. Was pretty much shut out. And then the performance tonight was just pitiful. I don't think Mark Richt is coming back. I think Mark Richt has a good TV job. I think Mark Richt, he also has his health issues. I don't even think he's going to come back to coaching anytime soon. Hugh Freeze again. I don't think Scott Strickland would hire Hugh Freeze just with the baggage. Although he could chop up some offense. That's why I don't think Florida would get a Lane Kiffin or Hugh Freeze. Just with the baggage those guys come with. Again, I kind of tie this to basketball. A reason why Mike White was extended at Florida for basketball was because he wasn't in trouble with the FBI, and he's consistently taken Florida to the Sweet 16. You can agree or disagree, but that's the reason why Scott Strickland got an extension of Florida basketball. And I think Scott Strickland has the same mindset for football. Not many, he wants to keep guys that have a good head, have their head straight, don't have baggage, and don't have to worry about things outside of the program. Yeah, in your wildest dreams, Lincoln Riley. That would be a huge part. That's definitely something that's I think Florida would like to do, but and he's just getting there at Oklahoma. I mean, if he had been in Oklahoma for 10 years, maybe, if that job had ran its course, but I don't think Lincoln Riley ever. I don't think he'll be leaving Oklahoma anytime soon. Tom says the Gator Nation has been talking about the Florida football program for weeks. Changes have to be made, beginning with a new DC all the way to the head coach. If he is unwilling to make these changes, yeah, I think a lot of changes will be made coming up soon for the Florida program. Let me see if Dan Mullen said anything at the presser as Florida took an embarrassing loss. Embarrassing loss. I think it's pretty much. This is pretty much almost as equal to the loss that Florida had against Georgia Southern. And I mean, you look at what the program was. I mean, a year ago from now, Florida was 8-1 going into LSU. LSU had right at 50 scholarship players. They lose that game. Florida loses to Alabama. And then loses the bowl game to Oklahoma. The first 4 games, Florida had a promising season, looked like this season. Running the ball, having good defense, and then the wheels fall off against Kentucky offensively. And then the wheels fell off defensively against LSU. Nothing came together for Georgia. And then this was an absolute pitiful performance today for Florida as we're about to wrap up the Gators Final Report. I am Dylan Denmark. Thank you guys for watching another therapeutic Florida Gator show. You can catch me on Twitter at Dylan_Denmark. That is my Twitter handle. If you missed the interview I had with Terry Norvell earlier, catch his show College Sports Today as my voice is dying out. I've had the flu along with some of the Florida players this week, I believe. But that's my Twitter handle at Dylan_Denmark. This show is archived on the SEC and the Gator channel. Let's make sure we're not only subscribing and liking the show today, but also all of the other shows, the Florida State show, all of the other SEC shows, the Georgia show. You can catch that at the Voice of College Football at any time of your liking. You guys have a great rest of your, Sunday since it's past 12:30. Have a great rest of your weekend. Catch us next week. Florida will play Samford. Hopefully they can play better. That game is a noon kick at home. It'll probably be in front of 65,000 people. I'll be surprised if how many fans will show up for that game, but we'll have a post-game show at 4 o'clock for you. And Florida has 3 more games. We'll put a bow and then head to the recruiting stage in the first signing period in mid-December. So long, everybody.